So what an epic interview so far. We're going to move into part 2. We've got a foundation of your life story, your life philosophies, and now we're going to talk about $100 million offers and get into some real practical, tactical sales and marketing tips. I do want my young and profiters to go get his book. It's only 99 cents on Amazon. I often only read the books of the people who come on my show because I have like 2 interviews a week, but I did read Alex's earlier this year on my own accord, so I highly recommend it. And we're using it as a blueprint to launch our LinkedIn course. Okay. So let's get right into it, Alex. Let's talk about pricing. Can you talk to us about why it's not ideal to start off with a low price and why we need to not have that kind of a mindset when we're going into price our offers?
So there's really 2 pricing strategies, and this is it's a gross simplification, but you can price you can be the lowest price leader, right? Or you can be the high value leader. Like those are really the positions in the marketplace. Now you can make an argument for a third, which would be luxury, but in like business services, that doesn't really exist as much. And so either your entire strategy is built around being able to provide the same value as the rest of the marketplace, which is commoditized, and do it for less. That is a strategy, but there's only one guy who can have that spot. And most people don't start with that strategy. They look around, they see what everyone else is charging, they take the average and they say, I'm gonna do the same thing they're doing and do a little bit better. I'm gonna do a little bit more for a little bit less, right? And then the thing is that everybody, because of the marketplace, tries to do a little bit more for a little bit less until eventually you can't do any more for any less. And so you end up being a nonprofit, which is what most small businesses are. Most small business owners don't make any money. And it's because of that kind of mindset. And so it's solving for a different outcome, which is, how do I provide the absolute most value to a very specific type of customer? Because if you talk to that specific customer and you can really help them accomplish their dreams, they'll pay you as much as you want. But the thing is about stacking the other side rather than trying to cut the price. It's just trying to increase the value. And then by extension, with the increase in value, you get a corresponding increase in price that you are able to charge. And by doing that, you enter a virtuous cycle of price rather than a vicious cycle of price. The vicious cycle is you keep cutting your prices, your margin drops, you can't spend as much to fulfill each customer, your service drops even lower, your salesmen aren't convicted because they see all the complaints, you have really low reviews, you can't pay people well, you have to lower your price, you have less profit, and it just goes around and around. It's a very terrible existence, and I've been there. The flip side is you charge more, and so the people that are buying are more convicted that you can actually help them. They're more invested because they paid more. And if you have any kind of business where somebody has to do something in order to be successful, which basically many service businesses, the client has to do some stuff, right? The more invested the client is, in a very real way, the more valuable your product. Because if you get somebody who's super invested and does the stuff, then you deliver a better outcome in real terms. The next thing is that people actually perceive the value higher. So they've done a study with this where they had 3 bottles of wine, low, middle, and expensive wines, and they had people taste them and they had them rate them. And unsurprisingly, people rated the low wine the lowest, the middle wine the middle, and then the expensive wine the best. What they didn't know is that all 3 wines were the same. And so in a very real way, the relationship we value in price is bidirectional. People ascribe value to something based on the fact or partially based on the price that is there. So if you charge more money, people will also perceive your thing as more valuable. But with that excess profit, you can also fulfill in that purpose. So now you can hire the best people. You can spend more in marketing to acquire customers. You can treat them with the little doodads that you probably wouldn't be able to do if you were trying to be a low-cost leader, right? And so you enter a virtuous cycle where people get more value, they tell their friends, they stay longer, they pay more, you can market more, and then it spins the other way. And so most people, it's the scariest thing for entrepreneurs, because we've done this with portfolio companies. We had one portfolio company, we did a ton of research to look at the marketplace, et cetera. And after all the research, the very first thing we did, which is not common for us, is we made a price change. We said, we're gonna do nothing different. We're just raising the price 50%. I had to get on 9 calls with the CEO to convince him to do it. 9. Be like, it's gonna be okay. If it doesn't work, we'll switch it back. You know what I mean? And he made the change, we tripled the profit of the business. And this is a big business, tripled. Wow. And here's what's crazy. Most times when you increase the price, you sell fewer units. It's common, right? But it's okay because it's a curve. If you charge 10 times as much and you sell 1/3 fewer customers, you make way more money. You know what I mean? And so in this particular instance, we actually sold more people because people perceived it. This was a medical professional, et cetera. And I was like, I think you're mispriced. Like, people expect it to be higher than it currently is because of your medical background. And so we made the price change and then, tripled the profit of the business in 3 months. So all that to say, most people are competing as commodities. There's two people in the marketplace. People can't tell the difference. They pick the cheaper one. The idea is, how can we make our price so much more expensive than everyone else in the marketplace that people have to pause and think, there's something different happening here. I should think more about this. And then you stack that with all of the other value that you're going to provide them, that ultimately makes them choose you, even though you're not the cheapest person.
Yeah. So there's actually, like you said, there's benefits to actually increasing your pricing. The client can actually get a better result because they're more invested. Totally. And also they think it's worth it because they're like, it's priced higher. This must be really good, right? So what are the other things that make people feel like they're getting a good deal?
So, one of my favorite sayings from Warren Buffett is, price is what you pay, value is what you get, right? And so the ideal is that we still want to always give people a bargain, right? Everyone wants a bargain, but it doesn't mean cheap. And so that's the big difference, right? Like, people, you can have something that's very expensive. So if I said, hey, here are the keys to my brand new Ferrari, and you can have it for 50 grand, a lot of people would find a way to come up with 50 grand like that if they knew the car was worth 600. And so the idea is, how can we make our service very clearly worth 600 and charge 50, rather than try and sell a crappy Honda for a little above market? That's where everybody messes up. They take a shitty product, they raise the price, and then they get more upset customers. The idea is to find a way to provide so much value for not a ton of money that you can then, so it's like, if I spend $100 in cost to deliver $10,000 of value and charge $1,000, then I have 90% margins, they get 10 times the value, and everyone wins. And that is a wonderful business. And that's what we try to create, is we look at how much value, like when we're looking at companies we want to take on, right, is we look at the core product. How much value are they really able to provide a customer? And then we can reorient the monetization and the productization of the business and the services in such a way that we can maximize how much money we make, and then ultimately spend more to acquire customers, hire better talent, et cetera, and that's how we can scale it.
Okay, so let's talk about your value equation that you have in your book. You say there are 4 primary drivers of value. Can you break that down for us?
Yeah. So the first one, this is kind of like category-wise, is that, like, in general, people have to want the thing. And so the more they want the thing, the more valuable it will be. Because in general, if I say I can help you make more money versus I can help you lose weight, in general, as a category, making more money stuff sells for a higher price, in general. Now, once you double click into a specific category, you then have, I'll use weight loss because it's an example everyone understands. How is it that liposuction is $50,000, because that promises weight loss, and then an ebook on weight loss is $5 and it promises the same thing? Well, it's the other 3 variables. So once we get into something, the other 3 variables are what influence the value and ultimately the price. And so if you think about this like a fraction, the 4, so just draw a line mentally. The first one is the dream outcome. The higher and the cooler the dream outcome, the more valuable the thing you sell is, number 1. Number 2 is the perceived likelihood of achievement. Now, this is the last one I ended up coming up with when I was writing the book. I was like, something's off here. And I'll give you a clear example. So we'll use that liposuction thing. So imagine you've got a doctor who finishes medical school, and the day after they finish medical school, they put up their shingle and they say, I'm doing liposuction. And you've got another guy who's done 10,000 surgery of this particular surgery. Who are you willing to pay more for the same surgery?
The experience.
The guy who's done 10,000. Yeah. And I was like, what is that? That's perceived likelihood of achievement. It's risk factor. It's that when I pay this money, it's the likelihood that I'm actually going to get what I want. And even though, and this is a good one for everyone who's a service provider, the guy who's newer probably will take longer. So he's spending more time with his patients than the experienced guy, but it doesn't matter because it's about the outcome and the perceived likelihood they achieve that. And that's why testimonials, having guarantees, things like that can increase the perceived likelihood of achievement. And if you add a guarantee, you can in a very real way increase your price because you have decreased their risk. Right? So you maximize the first 2, which is going to be the dream outcome is something they really, really want, and that you increase the perceived likelihood that they're actually going to achieve it. Now, the second half of the equation is the bottom side of the fraction. The goal here is to minimize these things. And the first half of my career, I spent all my time on the top side, making bigger promises, lots and lots of testimonials. That was all I did. And I think that's kind of a telltale sign of a newer marketer, newer entrepreneur. If you look at the businesses that are worth a fortune, they spend all of their time on the bottom side because the bottom side is usually the competitive moat. Anyone can make promises and anyone can show testimonials and things like that. But what people can't do is the bottom, which are these two things. Number one is time, and the second one is effort and sacrifice. So time delay is the distance between when you buy and when you get, right? So if I were to swipe my credit card for a gym membership, it's gonna take a long time for me to get the body that I probably want. Why does liposuction cost more? Because it happens way faster. You can get someone to lose 50 pounds in basically them going to sleep and waking up. Now, sure, there's pain, there's recovery, but it's still, they don't have to go to the gym, they don't have to change their diet, they don't have to sweat, they don't have to change their schedule, they can still drink margarita, like they can do everything. And then in a day later, they're gone. And the marketplace values that in a very real way. You have to arm wrestle someone to get them to sign up for a $29 a month gym membership, but people will fork over 40 grand for liposuction all day long. And so it's because of the time delay, right? And in a B2B example, to give a different one for your audience, if I were an agency and I had marketing services, if I did two agencies have identical marketing services in terms of outcome, but one of them, the moment you sign the contract, your phone rings and it's a prospect. How much more valuable is that compared to the guy who's going to take 60 days to ramp up? Significantly more valuable. And so one of the easiest business strategies in the world is do what everyone else is doing it and do it in half the time. Just easy way to provide value and win. The fourth one is effort and sacrifice. So they're two sides of the same coin. Effort is things that you have to start doing that you don't want to do, that you weren't doing before you signed up for the thing. And then sacrifice are things that you have to stop doing that you do want to do that you can't do as a result of buying the thing. So effort would be, I have to show up to the gym. The sacrifice is I can't sleep in, right? And these are valuable because it helps you with the copy in terms of explaining it to somebody. Like the effort is that I have to eat chicken and broccoli. The sacrifice is I don't get Taco Tuesdays, right? And so you have to give up, you have to make trades that people don't want to make as a result of the purchase. And so oftentimes, especially newer entrepreneurs, if you can't give away your services for free, like people won't say yes to you, which by the way, I recommend everybody get your first 10 clients by servicing for free. But if people are not willing to work with you for free, it's because your price is not the most expensive thing that they are overcoming, the money, because there's additional costs. And many of them are time, effort, and sacrifice. And so with the agency example, if all of a sudden, as a result of this purchase, you have to meet with me 3 times a week, you have to start recording creative and make ads and write copy and check in on campaigns with me, that's a lot of effort and sacrifice that I didn't have to do before. Versus, hey, pay us and your phone's gonna start ringing. We'll handle everything else. Significantly more valuable, right? And so in a real way, businesses that can minimize the effort and sacrifice that their customers go through and deliver the promise faster and do it in a way that the person feels like there's almost no risk, that they're definitely going to achieve it, and it's something that they actually want, becomes tremendously valuable. And so like the ultimate version of this is all those things maxed out, which is the most amazing dream thing that I know without a doubt I'm going to get that happens instantly with no effort. And I think, the moment we can click a button and then a 6-pack appears on our stomach, like it would be an infinitely valuable thing. And so I think a lot of entrepreneurship is just going towards that ideal. And then that is really, it shows us that we always have more that we can improve on. And if you look at Amazon, what have they done? They incorporate all those things. They have the dream outcome, so they'll show you, like the best Amazon sellers have little videos that'll demonstrate how to use the thing. So they show you what the dream outcome looks like of what your experience is going to be. You have the perceived likelihood because you have all the reviews, right, that are there that you can see. You've got the time delay, which they minimize with Prime, right? It shows up the same day. And then effort and sacrifice, you click a button. You don't have to type in any stuff, et cetera, right? It's delivered. And so it's like all of the best businesses, Netflix, like they deliver the same experience as Blockbuster. That's the dream outcome, is watching the movie. The perceived likelihood that you can get what you want. They're selecting things, they're catering your experience because you suggested by Netflix. They make it even easier. The time delay is instant. You don't have to go anywhere. And the effort and sacrifice, you click a button from your couch. And so the businesses that focus on the bottom side of the equation create a competitive mode that make it very difficult for new entrants. And so that's where the enterprise value comes. And I would say the latter half of my career has been focusing on the bottom half rather than the top half.
Very great breakdown. I want to double click on a couple of those things. Hear that sound, young and profiters? It's music to my ears because that's the sound you hear whenever you make a sale on Shopify, the sponsor of today's episode. So many of my listeners out there are thinking about starting that side hustle or business that they've always dreamed about. If that's you, Shopify is the perfect thing to kickstart your entrepreneurship journey. If you really want to make your dreams happen, you've got to put some skin in the game, yeah, fam. You've got to invest in your dreams.
Shopify is an all-in-one e-commerce platform to start, run, and grow your business. It's one of the most helpful tools that any business, regardless of size, can use. From helping you design your online store, to providing key analytics, to even handling online payments information, Shopify makes it incredibly easy to run an online store. Shopify gives entrepreneurs the resources that were once only reserved for big business. Now startups can sell just like the big dogs. With Shopify, you can synchronize online and in-person sales, and you can reach customers across every major social network. For example, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, Pinterest, you name it. The best part is the data that Shopify provides. They have incredible data insights. You can gain insights as you grow with detailed reporting on conversion rates, profit margins, and so much more. Scaling your business is a journey of endless possibility with Shopify. Shopify powers millions of businesses. In fact, everybody I know who has an online store uses Shopify to power their business. Shopify will help you from first sale to full scale. If you're looking for a sign, young and profiters, to start your business, this is your sign. Go ahead and start that side hustle you've always dreamed of. Start that business you've always thought about. Launch your product. This is your future. This is possibility, powered by Shopify. Go to shopify.com/profiting, all lowercase. Young and profiters, that's really important. It's case sensitive. So that's shopify.com/profiting for a free 14-day trial and get full access to Shopify's entire suite of features. Yes, you can use Shopify for free for 2 weeks. Grow your business with Shopify today. Go to shopify.com/profiting right now. Again, that's shopify.com/profiting.
So when you're talking about dream outcome, a lot of entrepreneurs make the mistake of talking about features. And in this whole value equation, you did not say anything about features or value proposition of your product. Yeah. So why is it important to, not sell the plane ticket, but sell the vacation?
So this is actually really interesting because I've gone even deeper in this. So to advanced people, it's actually a thing of language. So if I were to talk to an advanced business owner, I can explain features and they will already translate them into benefits for themselves because they are experienced. Beginners, if you were selling to beginners or intermediates, you have to translate the feature into what it will do for them and what their experience will look like after they've used or the feature has been, consumed. And so the importance of using the value equation will inform how you talk about your products. So it's like, here's the dream outcome, which you can describe to them. Here's why you should feel like it's very low risk to make this purchase. Here's what you can expect from a time perspective. And then this is the effort and sacrifice that goes into it. If we can explain the benefits of what we're selling in using those 4 buckets, which I would highly encourage everyone to look through with those 4 check marks. If it's not doing one of those 4 things, you can probably cut it. When you do it that way, and then you dumb it down to a 3rd grade reading level, because half of America doesn't even read above a 7th grade reading level, you will get more people to buy.
Yeah. So another question that I have is that you use the word perceived, and I was curious about that. So why is it perceived likelihood of achievement, perceived time delay, perceived effort?
Because if you don't communicate it, it doesn't matter. So they will not perceive the benefit, because all that matters is their perception, right? Because everybody's reality is, whatever. I'm not even getting into that. But the point is they will not buy something they do not perceive as a benefit. And so the point of underlining their perception is that if we do not communicate it, they will not perceive it and they will not value it, which means you don't get paid for it. So if you do not communicate it, you ain't getting money for it. And so that's why each of those 4 has to be communicated in such a way that they perceive the dream outcome the way they want it to be. So I'll give you a quick example of this perception thing. So in the gym world, we would sell memberships, right? Challenges, et cetera. What's interesting is that we found out that if somebody said no, and we said, you know what, we just want to give you a nutrition consultation for free, we want to have goodwill in the community, et cetera, people would say, okay, fine. They'd come to the nutrition orientation. And people who said they could not afford the gym membership would buy 50% more supplements. 50%, and this is to a no. This is to a non-close. Would buy 50% more supplements than the people who bought. And it was because they wanted the dream outcome, but they wanted it their way. They wanted a different vehicle. So we want to solve the problem, but we want to solve it the way they want it to be solved. And so for each of these things, we have to communicate that thing. Otherwise, they're not gonna perceive the benefit or pay us.
Cool. Amazing. Okay, so I'm going to skip over a few parts because there's some really important things that I want to talk about. So let's talk about market. Okay, so a lot of people, they focus on a bad market, and I'd love to understand what makes a good market for your offer.
So in the book, I break down 4 factors. So the first thing is you want to make sure that the people actually want what you have. All right. So typically I express that as pain. They're in some sort of pain. They're suffering some problem that they want to solve. And the bigger the problem that you solve, the more money you make for it. Right. So number 1 is that they're in pain. Number 2 is you want the marketplace to be growing rather than shrinking. Right. Because if you could have a tailwind, if you're going to do the same work, you might as well have something pushing behind you. Mm-hmm. The flip side of that, I can give examples in a second. The third one is you want them to have the spending power, because the worst thing in the world is like, you've got a market that's growing. There's a painful problem that you want to solve and that you have the ability to solve, but then they ain't got no money, right? A friend of mine had a resume business, right? He wanted to like help coach people on their resumes and whatnot. And he called me up one day. He's like, "This is brilliant. I'm gonna make all this money." And it turned out, he was like, "Dude, they're all broke. They're all on unemployment." Now, you could make the argument that helping people with a resume inherently is not bad, but he had picked the wrong market to serve. If he had helped corporate executives get raises, he probably would have made a lot more money, right? But he was picking unemployed people to help them get a job rather than helping people get a better job, right? Yeah. Tiny difference. But the lever on how much money you can make serving different audiences is the name of the game. The reason many of the Fortune 500 companies are enterprise, like Salesforce, like they're enterprise, well, they've gone down market now, but like, they built their value on the fact that they served very expensive customers, $1 million, $2 million, $10 million a year contracts. And it's because you get to charge based on the value of their business, not yours. And that's one of the beautiful things about this, right? Like let's say you have a CRO agency, so conversion rate optimization agency, and you go to an e-commerce store and you say, "I can optimize your site and get you 10% more conversions." Okay, cool. So if I'm making $1 million a year as the e-commerce store owner, CRO happens, I make 1.1. Fantastic. If I go to the same, another business, same type of business, e-commerce, and they're doing $100 million a year, and I do 10%, they make $10 million a year. Same work. And I make them $10 million versus $100,000. Which one do you think I can charge more? The $100 million one. I could probably ask for $2.5 million of the 10 that I make them. Probably. Yeah. I could probably negotiate that in if it was only on the gain. And so many times, the amount of money we make is partially due to the value that we provide, but a big part of it is the market. And the market I actually put before I put the value of the offer itself, because I think it's actually an even bigger determinant. So a different example would be like COVID with toilet paper. If you were selling toilet paper during COVID, it didn't matter what your offer was, because the market was, the supply-demand curve was so strongly in your favor that you could sell for whatever you wanted. You're going to sell out. And so the idea is to try and align those 4 things. You want a market that is actually in pain, right? We're not trying to sell ice to Eskimos, not actually, right? You want them to be growing. A friend of mine was in the newspaper business. And so he had an amazing offer. He would actually do a rev share based on only revenue that he would bring newspapers. And he was eating up market share. The problem is the market was shrinking at a compounding rate of 25% a year. So from year 1 to year 8, it had already gone to like 5% of the original market size it really was, even though he was, quote, gaining market share. He couldn't grow the business, and he kept looking at all these things. I was like, dude, you're selling to newspapers. Like literally, I couldn't make this up. Like he was selling to newspapers, so he couldn't grow. And many of us are, it's an extreme example, but many of us are pursuing newspaper type businesses. We're selling to people that the marketplace is closing down, right?
Yeah.
And so those are the variables that we look at within the marketplace. And so the famous example is the marketing professor who's talking to his class and says, "Okay, if you have one strategic advantage for your hot dog stand, what would you have?" And everybody in this, is like, better hot dogs, better sauces, lower prices, right? Better location, whatever it is. And so like after it all dies down, he's like, a starving crowd. If you're out right in front of the bar at 2 a.m., you're going to sell out of hot dogs. If you're out in front of the stadium and you're the only hot dog stand there because everybody else is in their brick and mortar locations and you can wheel your cart up front, you're going to sell out. It doesn't matter how shit your hot dogs are. My point is not to say that you should make shit hot dogs. You'll sell even more, because if the next time the game gets out and your hot dog was good, they'll come back. That's the piece that people miss, is that anybody can sell one thing once. But the things that build the compounding businesses are the fact that the product is so good that A, they tell their friends, and B, they come back. And that's the unlocking that most people miss out on, because in the beginning, I'm going to go on this tangent because I think it's important.
It is.
When you are a new business owner you have to learn how to promote. You gotta learn how to market, learn how to sell. And the reason is not so that you can make money. The reason is so that you can get customers. You get customers so that you can learn how to fulfill on the product. What happens is you get a positive reinforcement. It's just like quitting the business. You get a positive reinforcement from learning how to market and sell. And so then you think, mistakenly, in my opinion, oh, I should do more of this. But the thing is if you don't have a big percentage of your business that's referral, your product is still not good enough yet. And so what happens is you will get to a point where you cannot outsell your churn. And so the path from going to 0 to like 10 million really fast is not the same as going from 0 to 100 million really fast, because you build the business differently, because you build it knowing that you have to have a compounding vehicle. And for many people, the compounding vehicle is that the product you sell gets other people on their own to come back and bring you more customers. Because as you expand, so here's some facts about business. Number one, advertising will become more expensive over time. Media always goes up in cost, number one. Number two, as you scale, infrastructure costs will increase. You have a partial offset with economies of scale, but the economies of scale are de minimis as you get further and further in terms of like how much economies of scale you get from your business. So if you have two forces that are going up and one that is barely going down, how do you continue to scale? You have to have a compounding force that is viral in the other direction. So as you go to colder and colder markets that you have to reach to advertise to that cost more and more money, and you have higher and higher fixed costs of infrastructure, only way you can continue to scale is that the customers that are buying in that cold market tell 5 other customers. Otherwise, you will not be. What happens is your revenue scales up, your profit decreases, and then eventually you have a break-even point. And that's where many businesses go, because they're trying to build their ego by showing their top line rather than building a business that has an amazing product. And so it's a race to show and brag to their friends about the revenue rather than think on a, remember, 10-year or 20-year time horizon. If you're looking like that, there is no rush to spending a year or 18 months getting the product right. One of my good buddies is a software designer, and he spent an entire year just trying to get his user experience right so that he could get the return customer to come back on their own without him having to do any reminders.
Yeah.
And as soon as he did that, his software company is growing at 25% a month with no marketing. But like most people would have the first product, learn how to market and sell, and then try and sell more and more and more and more and more of that, shove it in the front door, but the churn at some point gets too high that you just have to sell more people to break even. And then you have too much overhead because you had to hire all these people to sustain it, and then you're fucked. And that's what happens to a lot of businesses. And they can't take the ego step back and say, you know what? We're going to cut down our marketing. We're going to cut down our advertising. We're going to cut down our sales team. And we're going to spend this year fixing the product. Yeah. And then after that, it will. And what's crazy is when you do fix the product, the business will grow back on its own. And then you have the contribution margin from each new customer that you can go into colder markets, can spend more money on acquisition in different channels because you make so much money per customer. That is how you unlock the scale, not being like a crazy, like there's a role for marketing. Don't be wrong. Obviously, that's what I teach. But you have to get sequence right. People sell first and then don't stop and think, I'm only selling so that I can learn how to fix my product and make it amazing. You have to get some people to buy, for sure. Mm-hmm. But after that point, that's not the point you hit the gas. That's where you actually pump the brake, keep marketing and sales on a slow burner, fix this. And if you fix this right, you will keep growing. And then at that point, you double down and you gas it.
Yeah, that's a flywheel effect. All right, so the last way that we end this show, what is one actionable thing that our young and profiters can do today to become more profiting tomorrow?
Cut all the side things and focus on one.
Okay, and what is your secret to profiting in life, Alex?
Focus. So one of my favorite sayings is, if it's worth doing, it's worth doing right. And I think it's a very deep saying because most people focus on the doing right part, but I think more people need to focus on if it's worth doing. And many people do many things that are not worth doing. And so they do many things that are not worth doing, and in so doing, do them poorly because they do too many things. I just don't think many people you can't do a lot of stuff. Like strategy is how you allocate limited resources against unlimited opportunities. And so it's literally a process of saying no, because compared to the options of life, resources we have in time and money are so limited comparatively that we just have to say no 99% of the time, 99.99% of the time, but that's a muscle you have to learn. And so like if you just did one thing, and I'll just tell this quick story that I think will bring it home. I was talking to a business owner the other day who had like 4 or 5 things, right? And I said, how easy would it be for you to grow. Well, I was like, which one's your best one? He's like, this is the one that takes me the least amount of effort that makes me the most money. I was like, okay. If you cut out all the other ones, how easy would it be to grow that business? He was like, oh my God, I could grow it in my sleep. I was like, then why aren't you doing that? He said he didn't sleep for like 3 days thinking about it. And then he shut down all the other businesses and then he did it. And so like most of us are like, a lot of the progress we have is on the other side of very hard decisions or very hard conversations that we've been putting off. And so I think if you can confront those things, you can cut down and narrow your focus and then make it unreasonable that you would lose on a long enough time horizon. If you do this one thing more than anyone else has done it, you will be better than anyone else has been at it.
Amazing. Thank you so much for your time, Alex. I absolutely enjoyed the conversation.
Appreciate you. Thank you so much for having me. I'm very honored to be here. Thank you again.
Thank you.